everyone, today we're going to be making a waterfall for model railways, and in terms of model railway stuff, it's quite a good size. I usually recommend it for 00 scale, or it would be a very big mountain waterfall for N scale, or a little garden pond waterfall thingy if you wanted it for your fairy garden or your doll's house. Anyway, so here we are. This is the mould I made. Now, if you'd like a video on how to actually make this mould, let me know. So I made the original as well, which I can show you if you want me to. But today we're going to be just making this actual piece up, the actual finished product, because I've got an order in for one. Now let me introduce you to what we've got. Obviously the mould, which I made myself in a bucket. We have got Herculite plaster. It's like normal plaster of Paris, it's just stronger. It's more of a commercial grade, so it's really strong stuff. Nice to use. I've got some little whisks. These are little cute ones that are meant for stirring your, I think, frothing coffee and things like that. I don't know. They're very small. Anyway, I don't do cooking, you know me, so I don't know what they're for. I've got a scrapey thing to make sure we get into the corners of the pot mixing it. We've got the jug to mix it in. And I've got this new mat. It's from Let's Resin. I've just washed it, in fact. It comes up lovely and clean and easy. And I've put this down because it's, look, you can see it's silicone and it's deeply textured. Now, I'm trying it, I use it for my resin, but I've been using it for a few things lately, and I'm just trying it off, just going to use it for this today, because this plaster can go everywhere, and this is a resin collector mat. It'll, so anything that I spill will hopefully just gather in this mat and not go all over the kitchen, and then I won't get in trouble when Mark gets home. So that's what we're going to do. The other essential ingredients, as I said, the jug to mix it in and a cup of tea. Right, let's get started. So we're going to need some water, and we're going to be mixing up our plaster to put in here. Now, I never check how much this takes. I usually end up mixing about a full jug full, maybe a bit more, but I mix it in little batches because it's obviously it can be, you can end up with it too much in your jug and it goes everywhere and you can't mix it properly. So let's have a look at our plaster. Now this goes off after a period of time, and this is an old bucket I've had kicking around. I really need using a, oh, she says throwing the lid on the floor. See, it's a nice white plaster. If you can see that. Ooh. My camera rig isn't quite as good as it is in the craft room. But yeah, there should be enough plaster there to mix it up. Now, this is another one of the many things that I don't measure. I just chuck it into the cup, into the jug, and keep adding water till it looks about right. And if I mix too much water, well, it just takes a bit longer to cure. There we go, you can see it's quite a nice white plaster. And I don't bother sieving it, and if it's a bit lumpy, I don't care. So I've just added some water. As you can see, it doesn't stay quite as white as things like Eco Pour would. Those of you who are familiar with your resin alternative stuff. Because it doesn't need to. Having said that, as plaster goes, this is pretty white. Ooh, see what I mean? I'm splashing it everywhere. So I'm glad I've got my mat down. Having said that, it is plaster. It will come up, just comes off your worktops and things. It's just that having a mat under it makes it a lot easier. And also, things are less likely to slide around because this mat's silicone, so it's grippy. I want it a bit runnier than that. So I'm just chucking the water in. As you can see, I'm not being very scientific about this at all. And it starts to cure fairly quickly, so you don't want to hang around too much. So I'm just going to get in the sides with my little spatula thing. Make sure I've got all of the plaster out. Now what I'm going to show you is everything right through from this stage to actually doing the decor, because this will end up as not as a funky little water feature, but as an actual, as close to realistic as I can get it, waterfall. Yeah, one thing you don't have to worry about with this sort of make is how many bubbles you get trapped in it, because it's meant to be a landscape, but if you want to get the bubbles out, you can just do that. Of course, a landscape won't be perfect anyway, will it? And also, a lot of imperfections, if you end up with any, will be covered by your greenery. We're going to put scatter, we're going to put bushes, all sorts. Right, time to decorate it. Now, I've got all the essentials together. We have a little pot to put your paint in. Yes, it's in a yoghurt pot. We have got black paint. We've got like a beigey browny paint. And we've got our piece. And the mat, of course. And we are doing this in closer, from a slightly different angle, because people said they couldn't really see what I was doing so well last time I did one of these. So let's do it this way and you'll be able to see better. So first of all, I've moved my piece back out of the way. I wanted to show you why we use plaster for doing this. Now, I've not tried this with things like Eco Pour, Jesmonite or any of those, but I don't know if they behave the same way as plaster does. People have said, why don't you use resin? Because then it'll be waterproof. Great idea, but again, it won't behave like plaster does with the paint. You'd have to be a lot more accurate and fussy about the painting. So I want to show you what I mean on this little piece here. And also this will be a great way to test the colours to make sure I've put enough water in. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some water in this little pot. Now, I should have used a clear pot, but there's quite a bit of water in there, as you can see. Don't ask me how much exactly, but there's quite a bit. Because what we're going to do is just put the tiniest bit of paint in here. Now, these paints are acrylics. I'm just giving it a good shake. So they do dry pretty waterproof. But you only need a bit in there. Now, that's only a bit compared to the amount of water I've just put in. So we're going to have a stir. Just finding a stirry thing. Yeah, have a stir. So you can see it's incredibly watery. Get a little piece here. Now watch what this does. You'll see it more clearly probably with the black. Yeah, that's pretty good. You see it just absorbs in. And you can see that the white, there's highlights and lowlights. And that's dry already. Amazing, isn't it? So I think that's about right. So let's bring our big piece back in. Like I said, you'll see the effect a lot more when I get in with the black. But it's always worth having a small piece just to make sure. Now what we're doing here is we're just blodging a bit of this. Oh, you can really see it on the top there. I'll zoom you in a sec. I'm just blodging a bit of this colour in because stone isn't all the same colour, is it? So let's just get a little bit of underlying colour in places. Right, I will zoom you in on this. This is actually demonstrating it better than that little piece did. See, it's going into the nooks and crannies. It's giving it a very 3D effect. Now, I don't think you would get that very easily with any other mediums. I'm sure some expert out there will tell me otherwise, but that is my finding so far, is that plaster is the way to go. Of course, the other thing is you can carve plaster. You can carve plaster and it's easy to stick things to as well. So the plaster is absorbing it. There's a little bit of moisture that on the surface still over here, but not a lot. Now, black is next. So again, let's move this out of the way a moment. Now this time I've got quite a lot of water. That's about half full because we're going to use quite a lot of the black. And again, just a couple of drops of the paint. Now this is a Deco Art. It's meant to be a gloss one, but it's acrylic. And it won't go gloss on this on this scale anyway. There's so much water in it. It's just the first black paint I grabbed and I've now splashed everywhere. Goodness for the big mat, saving my work surface. Right, so we're going to test. So we're going to just test this on our little piece. Now it's easy to do the black to black. And we'll go a little bit lighter as it dries. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I might just put the tiniest spot more water, just to be on the safe side. Right, now watch this magic. Because we're going to go over the whole thing now. And this is where it gets messy, so you really do need to be protecting your workspace. So at this stage, I would say have your paint a little bit thinner and runnier than you think you need. Because you can always do more. It's hard to take it off once it's on. You end up having to sand surfaces to get it off because it does absorb in. So it's not like you can scrape it off or anything. You can see it's puddling in the bit that's going to be the bottom of the pond, which is what we want, because we're going to want this area to be darker to give it some depth. And then what I do, because I want to see what colour it's going to end up, because it always dries slightly differently to what it looks as if it's going to. You can see it looks darker on the camera there as well. So I'm going to let that all dry. Pretty much. It's very wet now, you see, because this plaster is absorbing a lot of moisture here. So we're going to let that dry thoroughly. There's plenty of paint still left in my pot, and we'll put another coat on. So we're going to build it up until we get to the colour that we want. Right, that's dry. Well, there's probably moisture in the plaster. I do tend to leave it for a good long while after I've let these, once all the layers are in, but it's all thoroughly absorbed in. So we're going in with our next coat. Now I've got a little bit brave and put a tiny dot more black in there, because actually I can see this looks quite dark on my camera screen, but it isn't. So we're safe to go in with a bit more colour. But it's easy, like I said earlier, it's better to start to go cautious and build it up, rather than going too dark to start with and rush it. You can see that's starting to darken down. The final coat I might get even braver and put a bit more black in, but we'll see. This bit here doesn't matter how black it gets, in fact the blacker the better, and we'll get our depth in our water. So I think you're probably getting a sense of why these things take so long to make, because you do need to let the plaster dry really thoroughly before you start doing this, and before you demould it. So whilst you probably could demould it in a couple of hours, I don't. Because if you try to do this while the plaster's wet, you get or still got any moisture in it at all, you get a whole different effect. Just doing the back as well. I tend to put some on the back because in case people put it onto the landscape, you don't want to be seeing a little bit of a white edge or anything. So I tend to make sure I've gone all the way around like this, and I'll probably put a bit on the back and on the bottom too, just to take the whiteness out of it. Right, so that's this layer. Pretty sure we're going to need another coat, so I'll be back again in another half an hour or so. Right, I think that's there. I don't think I want to go any darker. So as you can see, we've got patches where there's a little bit of a brownish tinge showing through, just here and there, so it's not just grey. There's just that little bit of natural mottling. Right, our next step is to start getting some greenery on there. The water will be the last point, and yeah, so let's make a start on that. So let me introduce you to what we've got now. We've got some gravel. Some of it's probably too big for what we want, but we can sort out the right size pieces. We have got some fine gravelly mix kind of stuff, and we have got bushes. This is my big box of bushes. So what we're going to do is get some of this down onto this. Now, bushes come in different forms. You can get big bags of fine crumbly bits like this. You can get it in blocks like this, and you break off what you want, and you can actually get it in sheets as well. Now I like it in these chunks because you can literally break off what size you want, and the best trick is to kind of vary the colours a bit, because bushes aren't all the same colour, are they? And we're just going to stick it on with PVA, would you believe? This is some cheap kids PVA. I have used the extra strong stuff that you can get from craft shops as well, but to be honest, this works. So I try to think about where would bushes go. So if these were going to be, if this was real, where would you have bushes? Now I've got a paintbrush here, which is probably a bit too big, but it's the only one I've got to hand. So we can spread it around a little bit if we want to. Now I know I always want a big dollop here, so I'm just going to put straight out the bottle because this is quite a good nozzle. And the reason I want a big dollop there is because that's where there's a gap, same here, where the water will get out. And also I just think that's a natural place. Natural looking places to have your bushes. And here I'm going to want it to go all the way up here maybe. Yeah, so you just go around where you think you might naturally have some bushes. And I like to go in the gaps between where the bits of rock are, and then, yeah, why not have a little bit up here on the top? Doesn't look like I'm going to need my paintbrush, does it? I'm definitely going to want some little bit in here. There we are. So then all we're going to do is, here's some bits I've already broken off. So we're going to go around stuffing them in the gaps, like so. Now what then happens is this should, well obviously it'll stick, but you might get bits that'll molt off that are on the surface. So generally what I do with those, well with it all really, is I give it a mist over with hairspray before I put the waterfall and the water in. The reason I don't do it after I've put the water in is because it'll take the shine off the water and it's a devil to get off. So I tend to put that in. I tend to do the hairspray before. It's just going to work our way around like this, and as you can see, varying the colours so you're getting a bit more of a natural feel. It's funny, the first time I posted one of these up on Facebook, I did it extreme close-up and people were saying, where is that? Is that somewhere in Wales? And it really made me smile because I thought, oh, mission accomplished. I must have done a decent job of it then, because I just posted it up with no explanation. And I didn't think I was that good at it. So I was well pleased, as you can imagine. There we are. Because you could add a bit of colour into these bushes, you could add, you know, so it looks like they're flowering bushes. You could, if you wanted to. I tend to keep it mostly green unless somebody's asked me to do it something specific. Now I also do tend to get the odd request for specific colours of stone. I've had somebody doing a Cotswold stone effect layout. So yeah, I've had sandstone as well. And yeah, that's not a problem, we can do that. Now we're going to pick out some of the smaller gravel. Now the trick with the gravel is to try to pick bits where the colours kind of go with what you've made. So it looks like, not too far off is it? So it looks like they are plausible as part of the scenery. And I tend to put in, because I noticed this has ended up sort of like a brownish grey because of those details I put in. Yes, just putting a bit like this in around the edges. Just a little bit, just to give it a bit of detail. Then we'll have a bit of the fine one. Paint all over my hands still. And this is a bit of battlefield scatter, I think. I'm not sure I want these bits, they're a bit the wrong colour, so we'll take those back out. And that's where our water's going to go. So now I'm going to leave it a couple of hours because I want that to dry really well. Then we'll get the hairspray on it. I'm going to wander past and press it every so often, make sure it's well stuck in. So we'll get the hairspray on it, and then I will have to leave it for a little bit. I'll show you that, but we'll have to leave it for a little bit to let the hairspray really, really dry, and then we get our water in. Right, I'll see you in a bit. So the bit that people asked most about when I made this video previously was what I made the waterfall itself with. So this is the stuff. It's from Woodland Scenics, as you can see, and it is called Water Effects. And I've got some that I was just starting here and then realised I hadn't pressed record. What you do is you put yourself a bit of it. I've had this bottle for years. Sometimes it can be hard to get it to come down to the nozzle of the bottle, but you just put yourself a little bit onto, in this case I'm using a plastic bag, but you can use, I typically use the sticker paper and stuff that's off the back of stickers. So I like reusing stuff. Or the backing off my vinyl from my Cricut machine. And then you just get something and go along it and make it textured, and it will dry that way. I originally thought this was PVA. It's not, it smells different. So I don't know what it is. But you end up with like a rubbery effect. So if I bring this up to the camera, you can see when you get those up the right way, those are going to look like waterfalls. But imagine that they're clear, because it does dry clear. Now what I've tended to do is tip them up the right way and have another little go, just to make sure it does look like falling water. Now when it dries clear, I'll be putting some little highlights on it to look like the froth that you get on water. You get quite a long time to play with this. It doesn't really start to firm up for like a couple of hours or more, I don't know, quite a while anyway. You want it quite thin, but as you can see, some of these are quite thick. Water doesn't necessarily fall thin. It depends where it is, how fast it's falling, all that sort of thing. Just cleaning the edge of my spatula off. So I'm going to leave those to dry, and then once that's all dry, I'll show you how we then fix them and then how we highlight them and make them look real. Now back to our piece. I said we were going to put some hairspray on it. That is as simple as it sounds. Any old hairspray. This is just what they've got around their shop. It's a Bristow's natural hold one. The extra strong ones are good. You might end up blowing some of this around and blowing it off. Blowing off. That means something in the UK, blowing off does. Sorry. Put plenty on. Doesn't matter. Any bits you knock off with the force of the spray, just put them back on, because it's very sticky stuff. It's weird stuff, this hairspray. But there we are. We're now going to completely leave that. That needs to be 100% dry, so I leave it for at least a couple of hours. And that will allow the final, any moisture that's still left in the glue, any moisture that's still left in the hairspray and all the chemically nastiness to go off it, so that the resin, when we do the pond itself, won't react badly with it, because I have had some really funny reactions of the resin not liking the hairspray. So yeah, you've got to really leave it so that's completely and utterly defumed, totally dry, not even sticky anymore. While we're just waiting for this to all dry thoroughly, I wanted to show you something. I have, since I mentioned earlier in this video, let me know if you want to see how that mould was originally made. I've spoken to a few people and they're all absolutely chomping at the bit for me to show them how to make that original, to make the mould and everything, so I will be. But let me just show you the silicone I'll be using. This is it. Big bottles of it. This is what I wanted to show you. It's going to use a lot of silicone. Probably going to use a couple of lots of this. But did you know Let's Resin do these great big bottles now? There's the size. Look, it tells you at the bottom. Apparently, there you go. They are big. There's my hand. This is brilliant, because as you know, I do a lot of mould making, and so thank you very, very much, Let's Resin. They've sent me these. I think there's some more on the way, because it's going to probably use twice this much. Knowing what the previous mould was like, it's going to use a huge amount of silicone. But yeah, I've already opened these and started using them. There's a lot more in here than my usual bottles that you may see on my channel. So Let's Resin, thank you very, very much. This is the softest silicone rubber as well, so it should make the demoulding of that great big mould far easier. What I'm going to do is a slightly different design, so look out for a video on that coming up soon, and I'll show you how to do it. So as you can see, this is now looking rather, well, rocky. All this has gone like really firm. That should be well held on. I did put another couple of coats of hairspray on it. So the next thing to do is to affix the bits of Waterfall. Now, I left them on a radiator overnight. The heating did come on for a bit, so it started to go clear. The bits where it's thicker haven't yet, but they will by the time we've finished the whole thing. It'll take another 24 hours before I dare post this anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick some of these pieces off, and you'll find they just come straight off your plastic bag, like so, and there you've got a bit of Waterfall. So I'm going to take some of these, and you can trim them, of course, if you wanted to. But we're going to take them and we're going to fix them onto here using the same stuff. Now I like to make it look as if it's coming down here. And of course, where it's actually going to be touching the rock, or on the rock surface, there's no reason why you shouldn't just put it straight onto the rock surface like this. And I tend to like to make it look as if it's splashing around. Remember, this stuff doesn't self-level, so that will stay 3D. And all we do to affix our little bits of Waterfall is work out where we think water would be falling. And then, of course, make sure it's pretty much vertical. But what it will do, because we're putting it on like this, is it will come out a little bit like as if the water's shooting out. So I'm going to carry on round. We'll have a few more bits. Let's have quite a wide one. I think the wide one's going to go over here. Decide which way up you think it looks best. I think that way. Trim the top off. Don't be afraid to trim. Just cuts like so. And again, we're just going to put a little bit along the edge here. And yes, all of this will go clear. I'm going to stick this one so that it's stuck here too. Now, if you're not wanting the water to stand proud of the surface, So it looks like, can you see? So it looks like it's coming forward, shooting out. If you don't want it to do that, you just want it to run straight down the surface, then of course you can just put this white stuff straight on. And let's have a bit coming down here as well. Yeah, you could just literally go down the straight down the surface with you. And you still can if you want. I mean, you could go like that, look. So it just looks like it's running down the surface. No reason why not. And if you decide you want this thicker, so the water looks more like it's a thicker torrent of water coming over, you can just put some of this on top. No problem. Oh, they're straight. Remember the direction that gravity goes in and try and get them pretty straight. There we are. I think I'm going to put a bit running down here, but we'll do it straight onto the... Let's make this look like it's a complete pond up here, shall we? Right, let's put it straight onto the rock down this side, so you can see what I mean. Right, then just get a stick or something. I'm just going to use the handle of my paintbrush as I've not used it for anything else in the end. And we're just going to... See, so you could do it like that if you didn't want to do the putting it onto the plastic route. So you could do that if you wanted. But, you know, have a play with it. Think about where water really goes. The more you do so, the more that's going to look real. And now we've got to leave this. Now, it needn't be dry completely before we put the white detail on, though I find it easier if it is, because then we can see if it's if we're putting the white detail in the right place. But basically, that is how you make the waterfall. And all I'm doing now is just smoothing off the edges to make it right. You can do a bit of trimming after if you want to. And we're going to leave it somewhere warm-ish, just to speed the curing up a little. There we are. Right, be back to you with the next stage, which will be putting the water in here. And then the final touch will be putting the white detail onto these waterfall bits and putting like a splash effect into the water. And then we're done. See why they take so long to make, can't you? Right, I'll see you for the next stage in probably 6 or 7 hours at least, I would say. So I'll see you later. Okay, so our next step then is just to add some resin as the water. This is just Apex High Gloss and I've stirred it like crazy. It's full of bubbles. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't normally go like that. That's what I mean. That's my fault because I've stirred it too fast. It'll degas anyway, but if it does end up with a few bubbles left, it really doesn't matter because this is a pond, you know? So I think that is going to be deep enough to get the effect we want. And then what we're going to do, because it looks deeper because of that darkness, doesn't it? Then what we'll do next, once this is cured, and I'll leave it a good few hours, is put like a splash effect on the surface. And by then I'm hoping this white will have sorted itself out and we can start putting the finishing touches in. And then hopefully by sometime tomorrow it might be ready to post. So all in all, we're probably talking 3 days-ish for this to be ready to post, because obviously you've got to let particularly the resin dry really, really rock hard, otherwise it's going to end up with like you know, bubble wrap prints and things like that in it from being in the post. So there we are. Right, I'll be back with you once that is cured and we'll get those finishing touches in there. Okay, we're back to put our finishing touches on. Now I'm going to zoom you right in on the waterfall. There we are. Can you see how this is all dried clear? So we're going to get some white paint and try and touch it in. And I'll try and do it at this angle so that you can see what I'm doing. So we've got a little micro brush. You can use a paintbrush. I just grabbed one of these. I'm just dipping it in my paint. And all we're going to do is just put a tiny bit in places that we think we could do with a bit of a water effect. Now, I invariably end up with far too much. So what I then do is I get my finger and I just do a bit of that, just to take it back a little bit. But you're just trying to get on the raised surfaces. So I do end up with it all over my hands and everywhere. Now the water in the area below the actual pond, I'll show you what I do with that as well. Because recently I've started doing something a bit more exciting with the water down below as well. See how this is starting to, sorry if my hand keeps getting in the way, I'm trying to do this at an angle so you can see it. And it's not easy. I did go through a phase of actually putting a tiny bit of sparkle into the water, and it was a bit too much. So whilst the principle was good, it didn't really work terribly well. So there we go, that's our water. Now this area at the bottom, let me show you. So moving the camera down, let's try and get you really in close to this. This is our pond at the bottom. Oh, sorry if this is a bit wibbly. Yes, our pond at the bottom, and that's my painted finger. Clean micro brush, extreme close up, and we have this stuff here called, that's where it's from, Wave Cast. Okay, non-toxic, environmentally friendly product. Woohoo! And it's from Just For You Online. Now, it is just a weird gel. That's it on the brush. And what I tended to do is try to create like a splishy splashy effect with it. Now, as you can see, it's clear. So if you ever need to do like a wave textures, or because you can actually make this really quite thick and you could do proper waves with it. But I'm just doing a splashy texture. So if you ever need to do something like that, you'll know what to get. I'm sure you can get something similar in model railway stuff, but I rather like this stuff. I just find it particularly easy to use. I think it's just water based. But it's just giving me a little bit of a ripple to the surface of the water, so it's not just, not just flat. And then what we'll do when that's dry, and this does cure quite quickly, we can add a little touch of white to it again, near to where the water is falling in. It's just that extra little touch of realism, I think. And I've only done this on one previously, and its new owner seemed to really like it. Do a little bit around the rocks. And you need a tiny bit to just give that little something. Right, there we are. Just going to let that cure. I'll be back with you in about half an hour, because I can show you what that then looks like. And again, we'll do the little touches of white down here as well. So what we do is copious amounts of bubble wrap. And as you can see, some of this has been recycled. Not all perfectly nice and new. I try to, use nice packaging, but I do also like to recycle wherever possible. It keeps my post and packaging costs down, and of course it's the environmentally friendly thing to do, isn't it? So that's that. So we've got a cardboard box, and it's going in there. And I've got one of my business cards to go in with it. Where do I put it now? Oh, there it is. One of my business cards, and I hope the new owner likes it. So if you like this video, everyone, you know what to do. If you want to give me a thumbs up, I know it's a little bit different to my usual resin crafts, therefore I will be putting the link to this video on both my resin craft channel and my random stuff channel. So I hope that's okay with everyone, just so that everybody can find it easy enough. So if you'd like to give me a thumbs up and let me know what you think of it all in the comments down below this video, that would be awesome. Thanks very much, everyone, and I'll see you for the next video.